I'm Elizabeth Donati with Creative Wealth International. People call me the Financial Literacy Lady. At Creative Wealth, we offer very unique financial education events, camps, and curriculums that are active, experiential, highly effective in that kids and adults actually remember what they learn in our programs, and way too much fun. This is a flip chart. And if you're one of our Creative Wealth coaches, you actually have been trained in extensively and know how to use one of these. But I thought I would actually like to teach everyone how to teach from a flip chart and to see the power in it. I know that we have gone to this electronic age where you might think that it's better to put things on PowerPoint and just read off the PowerPoint, which is the worst way to use a PowerPoint, but that's a whole nother seminar. And you also think it's very convenient because you can duplicate it and throw it up on the walls. But a flip chart works like nothing else does in my world or anybody else's worlds. The kids and adults that come to our programs where they experience the power of learning from a flip chart are I just can't tell you enough how much they actually remember. And one of the reasons that they remember when you teach them from a flip chart is that things become pictures. And when things become pictures in our minds, we tend to remember them. So I wanted to actually share with you some concepts about using the flip chart. And also to be very, very upfront, I really want you to know that who I learned to use flip charts from was Sarah Singer, because she's just an absolutely brilliant accelerated learning teacher. And using flip charts is one of the many beautiful aspects of using accelerated learning techniques in your camps or schools or any kind of program. It doesn't matter, kids, adults, it doesn't matter. So basic flip chart stand, basic flip chart paper. My suggestions on actually using the types of paper is don't get the kind that are sticky up here. And the reason that you don't want to do that is because when you go to flip them over, which we do, having the kids do a drum roll while we do it and a clap at the end, it's really fun, is that this part sticks. So if you're doing a program where you're going to rip the piece of flip chart off and put it on the wall immediately, that's probably okay. But if you do what we do, and over the course of a 9 to 3 program, like a summer camp or even a 9 to 6 camp, and I flip them over, and then when I take a break, I take them off, they tend to get stuck here. So I really like just the plain old brand that Staples sells, and you might see it up here, it says Sustainable Earth. So I really like these. The other thing a lot of people like to get is the ones that have the grids on them so that they can write lines and stuff like that. But my suggestion is just to get the plain white. And the way you get good at this, and I'll probably repeat it at the end, is that you practice using flip charts. All right, so the next thing is markers, what to use, and I'll pan in on this or insert a picture. These are called Zig Posterman. And they are 15 millimeter markers. You can get them online. They're not cheap, but they are refillable. They do come apart. You can refill them. The cool part about these markers, quite honestly, is that they're non-toxic. For years, I taught with those other markers, and the ones where you take the lid off and you go, whoa, and everybody kind of gets sick. Well, I found these, and it was just amazing. So while they are a little messy, and you do have to learn how to use them, you have to be a little bit more careful. They are non-toxic. They wash off actually really well. I've actually spilled them on the floor on carpet, and it takes a little work, but it does come out. And I just really, really like these. They come in a zillion different colors, but quite honestly, you'll see that the majority, everything that I do, even though I have other colors, I always go back to green, blue, red, and black, always. Okay, so it's great. The other thing is I learned that when you use a lot of red, people have a tendency not to see it. So I do have a tendency and a habit of using red for accentuating a word or underlining something like that. So that's kind of what I do. I'm going to start with the black just because it's a basic color. And also, you can see me bending down to get the markers. I generally have the markers in a little basket, a little wicker basket on a chair next to me, so it's perfect. Now you notice I'm standing close to the flip chart. Now I'm doing that for a couple different reasons. Number one, the space isn't very big. If I actually walked over here, you couldn't see me very well, so that's important. But the other thing to know is that the 3 different types of learners that we have that For the most part, we talk about visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, meaning movement, movement and emotion, right? So we learn by what we see, we learn by what we hear, and we learn by the movement that we do, and also by the emotions that we feel when we learn things. Just some basic information. Most of us are visual learners in some sense. A lot of us are visual learners mostly visual learners. So what you want to do is a couple of different things. When you're actually writing on the flip chart itself, I tend to write in front of it. And when I do that, if I'm going to write something here, like I'm writing a word, right? Okay. And I'm only going to use one color. We'll talk about that in a second. But see, I've created some curiosity because you can't really see around me, but you're curious, right? You want to know what I wrote. Well, if I step to the side of it, you can see I wrote the word what? Money, exactly. And we all like money, and that happens to be what I teach, which is why I wrote the word. Now, if I were to walk away from that flip chart and walk over here, for visual learners, you don't know where to actually look. You don't, excuse me while I knock over the light. You don't actually know whether you're supposed to keep your vision here or follow me over there. So a visual learner is very, very confused. An auditory learner who's listening to what you have to say, well, they're not having any problem. They're hearing the word money and they see the word money, and you walk over there, it's not a big deal. So Sarah Singer she taught us this little song. It goes, stand by your content. So go ahead and say that. Stand by your content. See, it's pretty easy. So you always want to do this. Now, the other thing that teachers have a tendency to do in making mistakes using flip charts is they'll write something on here and they'll do it here so that there's not building any curiosity. And then they'll say, so we're going to learn about money, right? They'll say it. It's really important that when you step to the side, you not say it, that you have your participants. And when I say participants, I mean kids and adults. It doesn't matter. Whoever's learning, everybody learns better this way, right? So you want to say, now, what is this word? And you have everyone else say it, money. So that's a couple really, really important pointers, is that you want to stand by your content so that your visual learners know that this is still where they're supposed to be focusing. And you want to make sure that when when you write it, you stand in front of it to build curiosity. To build what? Curiosity, exactly. And that's called a callback, and we'll talk about that in another video. And you want to make sure that you let them, your participants, actually say the words and you not say them. Because Harvecker used to say it's one thing if I say something, but it's completely another thing if you say something. Because when you say something, you actually own that thing. And when you say it, you have a better chance of putting it in your mind. And remember, I told you at Creative Wealth, our programs are highly effective. So we do everything to encourage our kids to learn it and our adults to learn it the very, very first time. And most of them, believe it or not, do. So the other point I really want to make is when you're using a flip chart, I've always been taught, and I always teach, to use two different colors, right? Whether you go back and you add a second color and do something kind of fun, or you want to actually add another word. Notice I'm still kind of standing in front of it. And my green marker's always been kind of weird. So this says, what does this say? Now read it with me. Money is important. Again, I stood in front, I stepped to the side and stayed with my content. I used two different colors. Now I want to also point out something. Now, while on this flip chart particularly, I did not use all capital letters. You notice that I wrote this out and I wrote this. You can do that. However, the most readable flip charts that I ever do, and I've done hundreds of them by now, probably closer to thousands of them, is that they all need to be uppercase. So if you were in my camp, you would give me a drum roll, and then I would go and clap, and then you would clap at the end, which is kind of fun. And believe it or not, the adults like it too. So don't think just because people are grown up that they don't want to have fun. Quite the opposite. When the adults come into our programs, our adult programs, they're just thrilled because there's music going, there's stuff on the floor. Or with the adults, we use balloons sometimes and streamers, and it's just fun. And learning can be kind of dull and boring, and especially when it's not relevant. But money is relevant to most people. So it's really important to remember to make things as fun and playful as possible. And that includes leaving the adults do drum rolls and clap. So one of the cool things about these markers is, and almost all markers, is that they have a flat side and a thick side and a thick side and a thin side. Okay, a fat side and a thin side, whatever you want to call it. And I always tell people to use the fat side of the marker, not the thin side. So I love this concept, and I'll get ready to show you about this little thing. Like, for instance, if you're going to make a list. Okay, I don't recommend, and it's one of the concepts of flip charts, is to make sure that every flip chart is very, very simple. Like I said, sometimes these little lids are a little hard, but you want to keep the flip charts as simple as possible. So, for instance, I do a flip chart where I teach something called the 3 realms of knowledge. And what I do is I actually draw a circle, big old circle, as thick as possible, and I draw the little pieces, right? And then I start labeling it, and you notice I switched colors, and I'll say the stuff you, and I'll draw KWK, you'll see. Now, I tell people that stands for the stuff that you know, right? As I go through it, I will add the stuff that and this is you don't know, and I go on, right? And I just see that I'm making a big picture for them as I teach it, and I'm asking them for callbacks, which again we'll go over later, and asking them lots of questions. And I generally don't say a lot. I generally, this is a conversation I'm having, which is why the building of the picture actually works really, really well. Also, it's really important that for the most part, you don't pre-draw flip charts. A lot of the people that have come into my teacher training and say, well, can I go through and pre-draw all the pictures? And I say, no, generally speaking, that's not a good idea. There's actually one flip chart that I pre-draw, but it has to do with an event that happens in our money game, and it's all just helpful when that's pre-done and I can flip to it. But the rest of the time, it's really, really important that you create the image while you're teaching it. And the reason is that it's an active it's an active thing that happens in your brain, because as you're learning, you're drawing these pictures and creating these pictures and visualizations for the kids. They're actually creating them in their mind as well. So just to flip to a picture is one thing, but it's really important that you, for the most part, you really make sure that you're drawing and writing out what you want to write out. I wanted also to share with you a way that I utilize the flip charts, drum roll, and clap, right? When I'm doing a list of things, and I'm going to go, one of my favorite things to do is to do the blue and the green. I really like the green very, very much. Okay, now, is if I'm going to make a list, like there are several times in the Camp Millionaire, or Moving Out for Teens, or even our teacher training or our women's program, Celebrating Women for Wealth, Celebrating Women and Wealth, that we're actually eliciting a list of things like beliefs around money. So in that case, what most people do incorrectly and boringly, if that's a word, is they just start writing and they'll stick with one color. And actually, one of my previous trainers, her name was Pamela, who worked with me, actually came up with this idea. And when the first time I saw it, I went, oh, that's brilliant. So she did a fabulous job with that. So this would be item 1. Item 1, notice I'm using all caps. And this would be item 2. And you see where I'm going with this. And then this would be item 3. All right. And T-H-R-E-E. I always say spelling doesn't count on flip charts, and the reason being is when you're trying to spell in a big platform, you're actually drawing a picture versus spelling. So I have a hard time even sometimes drawing out simple words, and I have to spell them to myself sometimes. So I always tell people that spelling doesn't count on flip charts. So you see, if you just went down the line and then went across and did a second row, I try to make sure that I kind of do an invisible line on a flip chart so that you can actually do 2 columns, which works great. And then when you get to this side, you can obviously start with green. You know, you put green here, and then you put blue here, and then you just keep going. And it makes for a very, very visual presentation of the information you're trying to elicit, okay? One of the other things I wanted to say is if you're a beginner, okay, and if you haven't ever used a flip chart, you will be a beginner, go get a really nice sturdy, this is a big sturdy one that I can't show you, but it's actually plastic. They do make them that come in a box that are metal. Those tend to fall apart, but they are much more portable if you need to travel with one, if you need to, I always have my boyfriend move this one. It's not that heavy, but it's just awkward. So really just get whatever works for you. But when you're a beginner, you tend to write something, and you'll start writing, right? And you'll tend to you'll tend to write down like this, all right? And almost everybody does it, so know that you're going to do it. So be really, really cautious of the writing down thing, and force yourself to write up, okay? So then, because you will learn eventually to write on the level. And it just takes a lot of practice. And it's really the only way, Pratic, it's really the only way that you're going to get good at this teaching tool is practice, practice, practice. So how are you going to get better? Exactly, practice, practice, practice. And then again, that's called a callback, and it elicits the information that I just attempted to teach you so that you would attempt to learn it. So flip charts. Flip charts are powerful. Create visual pictures. When you take them off, put them up as high on the wall as you can, put them in order. You know, however, if you're going to do 10 flip charts, put them in order on the wall, put them up at high, because visually that's where we store in our brains. We store visions, you know, high up in our. We tend to. I'm not going to speak to the brain part, but what I want to say is when you go to retrieve physical or visual information, you're going to look up, because people look up. They tend to do it. So you want to lock that information in the visual part of your brain by putting it up high on the wall. So that's the last thing that we do every day, or at the break, we take a break and we put them all up on around the wall. And if you ever came in on our, the end of our Camp Millionaire program, you would see about 45 or 50 flip charts from the week, and they just build on each other, and it's just really fun. And one of our saddest times is when we have to tear down every day, or at the end of every day, because it's so pretty when you get it done, get the camp done. So 2 colors, no more than 3 on a page. Try not to use just 1 color on a page. Very, very boring. Try to use the fat side of the marker, not the thin side. Again, these are Zig Posterman in a 15 millimeter size. They do come in all colors, but I do recommend that you just buy the 4 basic ones. Try to use all caps. Try to pre-think. Don't put too much on your flip chart. Just use a single concept or a single teaching element. Don't combine them. Don't make don't write a whole book on your flip chart, because then it just becomes a mush. Only use red for the most part as a highlight. Yellow too. Don't think that you can yellow. Yellow will get kind of lost. So my suggestion is don't even buy yellow. And stand by your content and make everybody say what it is you're writing. And you will find that your participants, regardless of age, they'll have a lot more fun learning from you. They will remember so much more of what you're attempting to teach them. And you'll have more fun teaching, actually. It's so much more fun to use a flip chart than prep a PowerPoint presentation and then stand there and, heaven forbid, read what is on the PowerPoint. There is nothing more boring, and I know you know that from the last time you went to a presentation and the guy started the PowerPoint and stood there and you went, oh my gosh, this is going to be boring. It's my experience, and it's the experience of most people that I teach there. This is a refreshing way. It's an old way. Whiteboards don't cut it because you can't take them off. And the whole thing is you want to actually create a visual picture that will last. So go get a flip chart, go get some flip chart paper, get yourself 4 markers, and practice, practice, practice. I don't always pre-think all of my flip charts. For the most part, I draw the same flip charts every time I do a program with the same activity or the same lesson. However, you'd be surprised that when you get really good at using a flip chart, you can actually wing one and draw a new concept on the fly very, very, very quickly. So there's oftentimes when I do either a one-day money game day, or I go teach a weekend Camp Millionaire where somebody asks me a different question, and I've always got paper and markers and pencils and tape, so I can always create pretty much anything on the fly. But being able to really understand and learn the flip chart, a really powerful tool. So if you want more information, you can visit us on the web at themoneycamp.com. It'll forward to our regular site. Or you can give me a call, Elizabeth Donati, at 805-957-1024. I love talking to people about financial literacy, and it's my passion. It's why I get up in the morning. So I want to encourage you to go out and figure out how you can affect little lives and adult lives with financial information that you can teach them, or whatever it is that you're teaching them to use the flip charts. And always remember to pay yourself first. I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye.